Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy. I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. SST on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and now on YouTube. So don't forget to hit up YouTube page, Subway Sports Talk, subscribe, notifications, the whole nine. Well, let's get to our guest today, Chris Hardart, the president of the CHSFL. And if you're not familiar with what that league is, you will get to know it over the next 30 minutes or so as we talk through New York City's Catholic High School Football League. This is the president. He's been with the league for over 30 years now as a coach and athletic director, and now in about his 15th year as president of the league. Chris, welcome to Subway Sports Talk. Thanks for spending some time.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really great that we connected after we did the episode with head coach of Monsignor Farrell High School, Rocco Del Puri. We connected, talked about the possibilities of this league and how there are so many people in the New York City area who are interested in this league, whether they played in it, they went to some of those schools, now they live in those schools, and maybe their kids are looking to see where they want to go, maybe play football, or maybe we have some young men listening to this show as well. So a lot has changed over the years. You spent some time at Christ the King. Now you're at Holy Trinity. So, Chris, I like to start off by letting our audience get to know you a little bit. So you were a player, Christ the King up in Queens. There's a great athletic school, great school in general. Then you coached there 89 to 99, 2 years as JV, 8 as the head coach of the varsity. So I just want to start by this. As a player, you're playing back in the 80s. Did you see yourself taking this line of work and going into the world of coaching and working with schools and helping grow programs and student athletes?
Yeah, I'll take it further back, Pete. I'll take it back to CYO basketball when I was in, third and fourth grade, starting out, and the love I had of being with my friends and playing. We would shovel basketball courts when it was snowing out, stuff like that. And then, watching these, we had some young guys that used to coach us that were, probably in their early 20s. And I would look up to those guys. And, and then really it goes all the way back to then. It really does. And I always knew that I wanted to work with kids and be involved in school and being involved in athletics from day one, really. And, I probably was a heck of a better student coach than I was a player, but, it's something I dreamed about. And, when I got the job at Christ the King as a social studies teacher and right away the JV football job opened up and I jumped in. And in fact, I definitely wasn't ready, but it was like baptism by fire, and it was a great 2 years as a JV head coach. And then the varsity job opened up. And when I got the varsity job, I was the youngest head coach in
the history of New York, you said? Oh, Chris.
I don't know if somebody since then, but I remember Bill Travers back in the Daily News days writing an article about it. And, that I was at the time the youngest head coach in the history of New York. And it was pretty cool. And I really didn't know what I was doing when I first started, I could tell you that. And it was I had some great staff, I had some great guys, a couple guys that played with me and went to school with me at Christ the King. And we had a lot of work to do, and we built the program, and I'm super, super proud of the years I spent there building that program. And, my last year there, or my last 2 years, we were in the AAA playoffs, and it was the only time in the history of the school that we won a AAA playoff game, and I was at Monsignor Farrell in 1996. And it was really like it was a great moment for our program and for our school. And I was really, really proud of it, and still am. And to this day, and those guys that played for me hold a very special place in my heart, because those guys, we really saw something through there that not a lot of people thought we could do, and that's how I started with the league. That's how I got involved with the league, during the 90s, all those years during the 90s when I was coaching and going to Monday night meetings with all the coaches. And that was when I think that's where the love of the league and respect of all these people that, all the older coaches in the league. And, I kind of revered those guys, they were a special group of guys, and it's continuing to this day. So it's been a great ride. Great ride.
And I must say, you said you didn't feel like you were prepared those first years as the JV coach. You must have been doing something right, getting bumped up to varsity after just 2 years. So it sounds like the coaching part of things kind of fell into place pretty well for you there. And to anyone at home or on the road in the car, maybe listening to this podcast here or watching on YouTube, if you heard AAA playoffs, you're not really sure what that means. If you're not familiar with the New York City Catholic High School Football League, basically there's 3 divisions. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, this is obviously your expertise. The AAA being the highest, the AA, and then single A, and all competitive, but the AAA is the cream of the crop. And there is sort of, I don't know if relegation system is the right word, but if you think about maybe some of the European soccer leagues, you think about some other, maybe some minor league sports do this, where the higher you are in the standings the year prior is where you're more likely to end up in the playoffs. And then moving forward, where you're more likely to be the following year, right? So you could be AAA for 2 years, but then if the program starts to go down a little bit, you may find yourself back down at AA clawing up. To give a little insight, is that a fair? We'll get more into that later.
Yep.
But that's a fair little assessment there.
Yes. Yep. No
Okay.
doubt.
Cool. So congratulations, by the way, even though a little close to home for me, knocking down Monsignor Farrell. I know we were sitting with Coach Garofolo, Coach Rock, reminiscing on those days, and Coach Groff. He remembered that game very specifically.
Oh yeah.
And, if I'm not mistaken, we were talking about it. Was that like a 9-7 win or something like that?
No, it was 9-7 in the third quarter, and they would say Monsignor Farrell was driving, and they were about, I think it was about the 10-yard line. They're going in to score, to take the lead. We were up by 3, I think, and they fumbled, and our guy picked up a fumble and ran it back 97 yards for a touchdown, to give us a bigger lead, and then it all went down. I think the final score was 34-7 or something like that. But us, and it was really a great moment for our school. You know, we at that point we had never ventured into that territory, the AAA territory, and Monsignor Farrell being a great program that they are and they always have been. It was a benchmark game for us. It really was, and it was like I got to be honest, going into the Monday night meeting that week with my chest, pounding my chest because, we just did something that no one thought we can do. And to beat a program like them, was really, really special for us. It really was. And, and basically built out a respect for them. It's respect for their program and respect for their tradition. And we didn't have that at that time. So to go and beat somebody like that was a big deal for us,
And if you think about it, you might have sparked a run for Monsignor Farrell. You knocked them down in the late 90s. Then they lost the championship 98 and then won it back to back in 99 and 2000.
Correct.
Before St. Anthony's went on their little dynastic run of their own, which we can get into that too. The one score that blows my mind, and maybe it was just Farrell playing this style, but if you think about style of football and what was going on when you were coaching in the 90s, Farrell won a championship against St. Anthony's in 99, 6-0. That's not a score that we would expect to see in this league today. So that makes me want to think about, this league as a whole. And obviously the game of football has changed so much over the years, but you've seen it in this level so specifically as a coach, as an athletic director, and as the president of the league. When do you feel like the CHSFL kind of turned into this new style of offense? Did it happen kind of in lockstep with college and the pros, or was the high school football lagging behind? When did you see the evolution of the CHSFL, as opposed to possibly the higher levels of football?
No, I think what you said about the colleges is spot on, because, my first couple of years in the league, the first thing I did was go to clinics, go visit college coaches, go find out what was going on at the college level, go, find out what, and I think that's what every coach in our league, who takes their job serious, every coach in our league who's a quality coaches in our league, that's what they do. They go and they still do it today. They're studying what everybody's doing and at the highest level of football. And I think that's how the whole game evolves, and there's no doubt. I mean, that was how, not only about building relationships with college coaches, for your own kids, but it's about learning. It's about learning the game, and all of our guys, I know, everybody in our league, is, you coach in our league, it's a clinic every week, and that's what I think. So I think you're right. I think we kind of go with the flow of whatever happens at, above us, that's why you see the evolution of all the spread offenses and the RPOs and and everything you see now, and that's what's going on in college. So that's why you see it where it is now, and you'll still see a couple schools, the Xaviers of the world and who are running offenses that work for them, and running style offenses and because the same way, like, you look at Army and Navy and what they do at the Division 1 level, running the option stuff and the spread option type stuff. And some of our schools do the same stuff. And that's where they get it from. They get it from the highest levels, and so it's about our coaches. It's about the quality of men that are in our league, and how much they study and how much they do.
And it also, it comes down to personnel. And you've seen teams probably adapt so much over the years, and coaches adapt so much. And that's the thing about college and high school sports in general, is you can't have the same plan every single year, because you might have a quarterback who can sling it for 2 years and then he graduates and your next guy's an athlete who can't really throw it to those tight windows, right? So you have to revamp the whole system. You have to redraw up the whole playbook and attack it from a whole new angle. And that's impressive in and of itself. And I know people always talk when they talk about like, oh, Nick Saban's of the world, should they go back to the NFL? Do they have to prove it at that level? There's so much debate of like, what's more impressive, is winning with new players every year, or is maybe getting the cream of the crop recruits really what puts them over? But then you think about in the high school levels, in the public school system, perhaps it's a little bit more straightforward, a little bit. Obviously, there's still a way for people to go to certain schools in the public ranks. They don't have to go to the school in their backyard, but most of the time that's kind of where you end up. In this level, in the Catholic High School League, there's schools that are relatively close, who you can make a reasonable commute to one school here and one school there, depending on where you live. And that creates competitiveness that is obviously bringing this league up. So over the years, you've seen all different sorts of schools make their runs. I mentioned St. Anthony's. Iona is going on a run possibly right now. Talked about Cardinal Hayes before we started recording. What has it been like from your seat now as the president of the league, watching, you want to bring the word parity into play, watching these programs kind of build themselves, sometimes from the ground up with a new coaching staff, with new world of recruiting, and as this technology has increased as well?
Well, the fact of the matter in the Catholic schools, Pete, is that our schools are businesses. We rely on students and tuition for our schools to stay open, right? So it's way different than what happens in the public school environment, and that's why sometimes in the public, in the media, not even social media, but the regular media, and I've fielded phone calls for years about, people don't know where our teams are. How come these guys were AAA last year and now they're only AA? And you don't let guys, you don't let things stay for more than a couple of years. And why don't you set up your structure and leave it alone for 5 years and see where teams go? And we just can't do that. And the reason why we can't do that is because, it's about being successful and making our teams, giving our teams the best possibility to be successful. And it's very difficult. It's hard because we have schools of big enrollments, small enrollments. We have schools with big enrollments that don't have great facilities or don't have football traditions. Then we have smaller schools that have really good athletes and, great facilities. And we have really high academic schools. We have, middle of the road schools. We have everything. We're not a cookie cutter league. We have all different shapes and sizes of, look at Staten Island, for example. When I first started in the league, Monsignor Farrell was the only Catholic high school team in our league. And, within 5 or 6 years, St. Peter's, St. Joe's, and more Catholic all came along and started football. And now the competition for those, for kids on Staten Island is fierce because of that. And Monsignor Farrell, who was, like you mentioned before, was a power, in the 80s and then into the 90s. And then, everybody thinks, hey, Farrell, they haven't won in a long time. Well, they've been playing at the highest level, okay, because they've been the one school on Staten Island that's been able to sustain their program, at a high level. And but the other guys, and St. Joe's has had great seasons. St. Peter's has had great seasons. Moore has had great seasons. But for them, it's a little bit harder to sustain because of the, Monsignor Farrell being there as the traditional power. And they're fighting to try to be like Farrell. When I was at Christ the King, I had St. Francis Prep, who was before St. Anthony's went on a 14-year run. St. Francis Prep to this day still has the most championships in the history of the league. And so when I started at Christ the King, it was like they were the team that I had to go try to chase down, And so that's what happens in our league, and it's so competitive. And you can't just, and it's not about trying to put somebody. This is what I tell all the coaches in the league and all the athletic directors. We're not putting you. I don't want to know where your program should be so you can win a championship. I want to know where your program can be where you can compete to win a championship. And that's very difficult sometimes to navigate. Because you do have people that are trying to figure out a way to put a banner on the wall, and get a trophy at the end of the season.
Right.
And I try to, and our executive committee is a great group of guys that have been around the league for a long time, and we have to kind of figure that out sometimes, and it's not easy. Sometimes it's hard, and then what happens is you have a team that gets kind of misplaced every once in a while, and that's where the media and some of the, say, parents and some guys from public schools and stuff like that, they'll take shots at us that, you guys, who you're playing this year, you're not playing anybody, and you had a great run, and whatever, and but you didn't play anybody. I love when they say that, because they go seasons without playing people, and in our league where when they say we're not playing anybody, that's a big statement for our league, because I'll put all of our teams in our league against many public schools, and we'll see how we'll do. So that's what it is, and it's again, it's very, very difficult. It's not easy to do, but it's the right thing to do. That's the way we feel about it, and that's the way I feel about it. It's the right thing. Like I said to you before, C.J. O'Neill over at Cardinal Hayes, he's a coach in the league. I don't know if there's anybody who's ever done this in the league, but he won a single A championship, a double A championship, and a triple A championship. So he's been at all three levels because that's how his program built, and that's the way we try to have everybody do it. Like we don't necessarily want teams to stay at the A level or the double A level. But the truth of the matter is there are some schools that's what they are. And it's not gonna be easy for them to ever get to that level. They have small populations in their school. They don't, it's not not everybody's built equal. So there are some schools that can kind of bounce up and down, and then you have some schools that are traditional double A programs or traditional A programs, and that's where they're going to stay because that's what they are, it goes back to so many things, Pete. It goes back to tradition. It goes back to coaching. It goes back to support by the administration, finances, who has enough, who can give the kids all the resources they need. You know what I mean? Like there's so many variables. It's unbelievable. But I think what we do for our kids in all of our schools is better than what anybody's doing in New York City, and better than what anybody's doing on Long Island. And that's the truth. And that's the way I feel about it. Obviously I'm biased, but no, really. I mean, but I'll put the way we do things, okay, against what anybody does. And we can't set up our league based on there's a lot of schools, a lot of leagues, they'll set up their leagues based 100% on population of schools. And, we can't do it that way. And it's not realistic. We're playing tomorrow night in the basketball championship, Holy Trinity High School against Chaminade. It's a little plug for the game for tomorrow night. But we're playing, Chaminade's got 1,700 boys and we have, 800 kids in our school. So 400 boys, and we're playing them in the basketball championship. So that's what athletics is all about. You can have, even though your population isn't the same as the next guy, you could be as competitive athletically, and that's something that we have to navigate. And I think we do the best job we possibly can. And yes, do sometimes a team ends up in the wrong spot? Yeah, it happens sometimes. But then we try to fix it right away. The following year we try to fix it. But it is a little irritating sometimes when people say, "Oh, you only won a double A championship, or you only won a single A championship, or a double A1 and double A2, or whatever and but it's still a championship, and it matters. Yes, listen, like you said before when we first started, the AAA is where you want to be. If you can build your program to be a AAA program, that's the top 8, that's the top league in the state. Okay, so if you get into that AAA and you can compete at that level, you got a heck of a football program.
Yeah. And just to follow up on some of those things, what you're trying to avoid is a team that can play at the AAA level who just says, no, just leave us down in the AA so we can keep putting banners on the wall. That's not what you want. You want people who can play at the high level. And sometimes it is out of your control when something goes awry with a program. Say they have 10 starters graduate. They have
Absolutely.
a few kids transfer. A coach leaves, and they were a finalist last year, right? Like you can't account for that stuff. So the placement in those specific situations get a little funky. But like you said, you work it out. And a lot of times,
got young kids
work it out itself.
Yeah, you got young kids. Young kids coming to your program, and all of a sudden, they're contributing like you never thought they were going to contribute.
Right.
And then you look at that, and we had like the COVID situation the last 2 years. That was very difficult too because certain programs got hit way harder than other programs did. And not I don't even mean specifically from COVID. I'm saying about the whole process of COVID. And certain schools were able. Certain schools were able to do a better job just because of where they were. Like Long Island, seriously, was way better than New York City was in terms of how we operated our schools. And that's not a knock on, believe me, the Cat schools in New York did a tremendous job. But I think, without getting into politics, but, the New York City, politics were a little bit different. And the way they were letting, you probably remember we played a spring season, and we had to split the league because Long Island got the green light to play and Westchester got the green light to play, but New York didn't,
Yes.
and that was another problem, because we had certain schools played 4 and 5 games. Other schools only played 2 games. We had, a couple schools in our league that didn't play at all because they couldn't put the team together, because of COVID, so that was another challenging thing.
And that leads me to a discussion I kind of want to have on the growth of this league over the past 20 or so years, right? So we were talking before we started recording, and I reminisced about my years playing. And I graduated high school in 2012. So my last football season was 2011, the fall of 2011, right? And at the Senior Bowl night, when you're meeting college coaches and you're doing whatever, I was literally going around handing out CDs to different coaches, which I don't think the kids are doing nowadays. And then you went up to me and said, CDs, how about driving out on a Saturday to watch the other school play with your own eyes? So that's the only way we got film or practice or prep work. You played a Saturday morning. You drove out to Iona on Saturday night to see what you were going up against the next week.
100%.
So talk about how the league has grown from that standpoint, how it's made it more competitive. It's also led to possibly more recruiting opportunities for players to play at the next level, and really how technology has changed the entire world of high school sports.
Well, it's funny, you're right, because the first thing I learned to do when I was a JV coach, the head coach said, all right, this is how I want you to scout, and this is what I need you to do when you go to a game with a notepad. I need you to do these things, and because there was no such thing as film, and then we got into, like you said, VHS tapes, before that, where we exchanged every Monday night. You had to go to a meeting every Monday night and, literally walk over to the coach you were going to play the following week and hand them a VHS tape of your previous game. And that was the only way you got it. You couldn't get it any other way. You had to go to the Monday night meeting to get it. We would spend, I'll never forget it. We'd come back from the Monday night meeting with the tape and, we'd spend until 1 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for practice on Tuesday because that was the one tape we had, and, but then, then it went to CDs, and now it's obviously into Huddle and things like that. And to answer what you were saying about, what it's done for the league. I mean, right now, you look at what's going on. You have automated cameras, you have the games are on YouTube. Even it's something like we're doing tonight, right? This type of stuff is tremendous for our league and for our kids. And there's no doubt that the whole recruiting process has changed dramatically. Years ago, when I was in the league coaching, and you had to literally send tapes out, send VHS tapes out to coaches all across the country to try to get your kids recruited. Now It's a push, it's a push of a button. Send me a huddle link, and boom, and the kid can watch. Kids are putting stuff up on Twitter every day, and Twitter is like the main recruiting hub right now for colleges and kids, and they can't wait to listen. It's kind of funny because they can't wait to put up when they got offered, and they can't wait to put up when they get invited somewhere, and it's a little frustrating, to be honest with you, because it's really, you see a difference in some of the kids, and some of the kids get really frustrated because they see some other guy that this guy's got an offer and I didn't get one, and this guy's getting invited to a junior day and I didn't get invited, and it's tough. It's difficult for the coaches today to navigate that stuff, and we have, for example, and Tony and Garofalo and I were talking about this. We both have two really good juniors. We have a guy at our school, and he has a guy at his school, and they're struggling to get offers in the junior class right now because of, number one, COVID, with guys getting a fifth and sixth year in college, and then you got the whole transfer portal at the NCAA level, and the junior class is really struggling right now to get recruited. It's difficult. There are sophomores that are getting more offers than juniors are. But to get back to what you were saying, I mean, the way the league's evolved in that way, I mean, I remember, it was such a big deal when one or two kids from our league got a scholarship to go somewhere, and now, there's one and two on almost every team in the league that's getting something. And that's definitely from the exposure that's going on. No question about it.
Right. It's easy for a coach down south, a coach in even like on the East Coast, but not quite the Northeast, the Virginias of the world, the North Carolinas of the world. I'm not talking about the Alabamas, right? I'm talking about those D1 programs that are big D1 programs, but they're not SEC. They're some of the other conferences. They had a recruit in their surrounding states 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago to some extent. Like they had to hit those markets, and that was basically the extent of it. Now, we're seeing this kid. Let's go to the Northeast. We're going to hit that school, this school, that school, this school in one flip. We're going to meet all these kids. We're going to see them in person. We're going to watch all their tape. We're going to watch every single snap they take. Like they have that at their fingertips, and it's changed everything across the entire country. And you can see a guy now from Long Island or Staten Island go to a school out in Ohio or Iowa or something like that. There's the actual connection exists. And
well, what it was, the negative was for coaches. I remember being a young coach, even, when I was coming up in the ranks, and some of the young college guys that I became really good friends with, they would go crazy when they had to come on to Long Island or go to New York City to recruit, because, for them to get to like 5 schools in a day was almost impossible. It took them, with traffic, and, and you got some guy that's coming in, a guy went to school in Ohio or something, and he comes into New York. He can't even drive in New York. You know what I mean? He doesn't even know how to drive. So what happens is that's changed too, because, like you said, they don't need to literally go and see the kid anymore. I just got I got a thing the other day from one of the coaches in our league who said, hey, the first time this has ever happened, he goes, one of our sophomores got offered on the phone, without the guy even coming to meet him yet. He hasn't even met the kid. He spoke to him on the phone and offered him over the phone without even coming to see him.
Wow.
And that kind of stuff. Because why? Because they can touch huddle, and they can see. For example, we have kids right now that are track kids too, and all of a sudden they're putting up times that these college guys can look at mile split, that stuff like that, and they're getting at their fingertips. They get, hey, this kid ran a 6.5 and a 55-meter dash. Like he's legitimate speed. There's no more like, because I remember we used to fill out questionnaires and you have to put the guy's 40 time on it. So, we're writing in there, hey, I think he runs a 4.7 or a 4.6. And, you really don't know, but now that stuff is at their fingertips, amazing.
And it really is. It is special. I do want to touch on the other side of it, right? The maybe not so glamorous side, the frustrating side. And as an athletic director, as a parent yourself, and as a former coach, how it could be frustrating for kids and how it could be dangerous for some kids, right? When it comes to ego and how they can possibly get their heads blown up a little bit too big, right? Where, maybe not everybody listening knows how the world of college scholarships work. Not all scholarship offers are created equally, right? And even if you got offered a roster spot, you're not guaranteed a thing until you are physically on that team. And even once you're on the team, it can be stripped away. So we know the sensitivity that goes on with trying to become a college athlete. Maybe everyone doesn't know. When it comes to athletes now, seeing each other on social media and saying, "Oh, I played against that kid. I beat him. Why am I not getting the offer?" Blah blah blah. What has that led to from your perspective in regards to how a team stays together? Like, do you think that's been negatively affecting how individual teams can even uh, continue to grow together when there's all these outside sources kind of trying to pluck away individual kids' attention spans and ideas and make the offers and try to sell them something bigger than where they are in that moment and almost take for granted the experience that is high school football?
Without a doubt. And I think that's a major challenge right now, for all of our coaches. And I think, not only in our league, but all over the place. It's a major challenge. And, kids, it's human nature for a kid to get his, like you said, to get his head blown up. It's human nature. I mean, you get a 15-year-old kid who's being, offered these, basically offered by these schools. And then within 5 minutes, it's up on Twitter, and his videos, clips, and these edits that these, we have a great guy at our place that does tremendous edits to put up on Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And then I've seen it work negatively to some of our kids who don't get the offer. There's a guy in the program who gets it. Oh, wait a minute, I'm better than him, or I'm as good as him, and it's very, very difficult. And it's something that, I've spoken to a lot of our coaches in our league, and especially some of the older guys, and they're like, this is not what I signed up for 20 years ago. It's so different, and we didn't even know. I remember back in the day, like you barely knew, probably even maybe more when you were playing, you knew your opponents probably more than back in the day in the early 90s. And the only time you heard about these guys is when you went to the game and you saw them on the field. Now they know each other. These guys know each other from 7-on-7s and camps and all kinds of stuff. And it's so different. It's so different than what it was. And it's a challenge for every coach in every sport. But in football in particular, it's very difficult. And I don't really know the answer. And it's a very difficult to answer. There's no real answer to it. You just got to hope. You got to hope you develop your program and you develop your kids the best you can, and you try to explain it to parents, you try to explain it to kids, and most of them get it. Most of them get it, but you're going to have those problems. There's no doubt about it, and you got to try to navigate through those problems and to keep your team together.
Yeah, it's the one thing that I've seen in my days playing some college baseball, even at the D3 level, like managing expectations, right? Who is 12 years old and him and their parents think that they're going to the pros, and whether it's realistic or not, most of the time it's probably not, just based off pure odds, right? Pure statistical odds would tell that most kids aren't going to make it to the pros. And then there's expectations put on and pressure put on. That's not always fair, and it's a tough thing to navigate. I'm not saying it's brand new, because that's not fair also, right? This has been going on for a while. But it almost hurts more when you feel like a student athlete in high school is getting led down a wrong path. And that could be not even having to do with with the parents or the coaches, right? It could be an outside trainer. It could be social media itself. And they're getting expectations that aren't always realistic.
How about an eighth grader announcing his commitment to a high school?
I was just going to bring that up. I'm serious. For full disclosure, I work at Monsignor Farrell High School, if people don't know that. But I saw people posting, I'm excited to take my talents to Oakwood, Monsignor Farrell High School.
Yeah.
I love the energy and I love the confidence. But it was like kind of eye-opening to me to see that, man. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Well, on one hand, let me not spin it so negative, because I think there are negatives and they're kind of obvious. Here's the positive. Some of these young kids are already aware of how careful they have to be on social media and how important it is to make sure you're not portraying a bad image and not portraying things that you shouldn't be doing. We had a guy for our business lecture series at Farrell come in today, class of 90, very successful businessman, talked about an example of a D1 lacrosse player, stud athlete, who had an interview at his company. It was a big interview, and he failed the background test because of what he was posting on social media. And that was in the last 5 years, right? So it's serious. And now these 7th, 8th graders, they're coming in with the knowledge and expectation of, hey, if I don't take care of this business, all these dreams I have don't matter. So that's at least the spin positive for it.
No, listen, I agree. There's definitely some positive, it's kind of like talking about all the opportunities. There was no such thing as when I first started, coaching, there was no such thing as going to 7-on-7 tournaments and playing 7-on-7, and football was kind of lagging behind everything, to be honest. It was lagging behind the AAU basketball and travel baseball and all that stuff. And exactly. So no, there's no question. There's positive. Hey, listen, and the fact that there's some of these kids that, I just put an edit up for our championship game tomorrow night. And, there's guys on that might be the only time. This is going to be the biggest game they ever play is tomorrow night. And it's kind of cool. And it's on, it's on YouTube. Varsity Media is covering the game, and there's announcers, and, they're going to have a post-game interview with the championship guy. And, there's definitely positives. There's no doubt. There's positives to it. But it's just about managing it. It's about managing it. You brought up Rocco before, and it's funny. Like, he's a brand new coach in the league, and I'm glad I had an opportunity to talk to him. And he's a smart kid. He's a smart guy, but he's, we talked about that, about managing, the egos and managing. You obviously you're trying to sell your program the best you can. But at some point, you got to be careful. You got to be careful where that goes. And
you
how
can't promise every kid a starting spot. Like,
no,
you just can't.
Exactly.
And back to my college experience, I was told, oh, you're going to be marked as a baseball recruit on your application or whatever it may be. I was like, oh, that's great. I'm probably just going to be on the team because I was told I was a baseball recruit. That's not how it worked, man. That's not how it worked. I showed up to the fall ball, and there was over 55 kids trying out for 30 roster spots at a D3 program. And guess what? Almost every kid there at a D3 program was a top 3 kid on their high school team. Right? It's no joke. And at all these levels, and I think that's the one thing that I do want when I interact with some of these kids. I'm always like, hey, don't shame Division 3, Division 2, 1 AA. It's serious out there. There are dudes just like you everywhere else. So I'm happy we're on the same page with that. And a lot of the programs here seem to be doing the right thing, as many players in this league are going on to continue to play college football, which is great. So let's segue back into the NYCHSFL real quick. And my apologies earlier. I guess I didn't elaborate that Long Island is part of the New York City High School Catholic Football League, right? So that was kind of implied by this point already. But what is next, right? Like, what is the mission statement in 2022 going into 2023 for this league? And what do you hope to see from a growth standpoint for this league moving forward?
Well, the one thing we've done in the last say 5 or 6 years, we've actually made some major changes. And one of the, so that, just like you said, just to explain what it is, the NYCHSFL covers 3 different dioceses. It covers the Archdiocese of New York, Archdiocese, the Brooklyn Queens Diocese, and Rockville Center Diocese. So those 3 dioceses, there's 23 schools that, I always say that we're like a giant foot. We go from all the way up to Somers, New York, and Kennedy Catholic, and all the way out east to St. John the Baptist and West Islip, Long Island. So we cover a big area, big geographic area. And then, so in my term, there's another diocese in Buffalo called Monsignor Martin that has Catholic League up in Buffalo. That's part of our state association. So about 6 years ago now, I think it is. I think we're into six championships. We instituted a state championship. So the AAA champ from our league plays the Buffalo champ, for a legitimate Catholic state championship. And that's been a great expansion for our league, And we also have a lot of connection there where, a lot of our schools will play teams from their league, in non-league games in the beginning of the season and things like that. So there's a lot of give and take there. And then the second thing that I'm really excited about this year, coming up in 2022 for the first time, we negotiated a big agreement with New Jersey and the Super Football Conference in New Jersey. And, 9 of our schools are going to be playing 9 of their schools on the second week. We kind of blocked out the second week of the season. And there was a committee of guys, two people from my league and 2 people from their league. And we had a a couple of event managers and Mike Quick, Mike Quick from the old MSG varsity days. He got involved a little bit also, and to negotiate this whole agreement. And so we have this, what's called the battle. They're calling it the Battle of the Bridge, and it's going to be 9 games on the weekend of September 16th and 17th, and 9 of our schools against them, 9 of their schools, and it's it's going to be great for football in the tri-state area, and so that's definitely something that we're going to work. We have a 2-year agreement with them, so this year all of our teams are going to New Jersey. Next year they're all going to come to New York. So we have to work on a site for New York, and because what we're trying to do with New Jersey and what they're trying to do over there is get Rutgers involved, so get some of the games to be played at Rutgers and some of the other small schools in Jersey, some of the small colleges in New Jersey to host some of the games. So this is what we're trying to do for our kids, again, to do the best we can in the Catholic League for our kids and for our programs. And there's not, we're literally the only league around right now that is basically navigating out of our geographical area to go play other games. And we had Stepanak went and played a team in Texas last year, and Iona Prep is going to go to Ohio this year and play. So there's we have teams that have gone to Maryland to play games. So that's what I think the next thing is going to be. We'll see how this works out with New Jersey. And for years, there were old school guys in New Jersey and old school guys in New York that it was a taboo subject. Like, don't cross over the bridge. Those guys are bad guys, and the New York guys are bad guys. And Tony Garofalo and myself, he's on my committee, and we went over there, and when we were getting in the car to go home, we're like, these guys are just like us. Like, they're good guys, and they appreciated the fact that we went there, and within 10 minutes of a conversation, you're talking about all the same problems and all the same issues, and they're all good. They were good guys. They're regular guys like us, regular, and they're all in the same business as we're in, So I think that's where we'll see what else plays out here, but that's the next step here, is to see what we can do geographically over in a tri-state type of situation,
Yeah, that's fantastic. And going to college in New Jersey, I learned about the group system, which sounds similar to what you were describing about the Long Island system, based off population. But then you have the parochials, which are the private schools that kind of operate a little bit more similarly to how the Catholic League in New York City operates. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
The parochials are a little bit more like that. So that's really cool, though, because then you get to see some of the schools that you hear about too, right? Because some of these schools have serious recruits consistently, right?
Without that.
Competition. It's a measuring stick. It's exciting. And, I'll say when our league competes with New Jersey, not if they compete, but when they compete, then it's really, it's confidence boosting for those programs. You realize that maybe they're not so far apart talent wise, and they're a lot more similar, and it's exciting. That's how you grow. So I'm pumped for it. I can't wait for the fall to come around. I'm not trying to rush too fast, right?
No. We got the summer.
Times it's a good time, and baseball season's upon us. Maybe I can't say that for the MLB. Different subject, different podcast day. But Chris, this has been fantastic. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add as far as like goals for the league or changes or any last words basically about the Catholic High School Football League in New York City.
No, I mean, I first of all, I want to thank you for even doing this, and I know we've had a conversation about doing some stuff going forward and having you get involved in our league, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think that I appreciate what you do, and I think like going to all the stuff we were talking about, this is the next step for our league too, and I know we were talking about doing some kind of coaches roundtable where you'll get the guys involved, and maybe next year during our season doing some weekly stuff with our league, and I think it would be a great thing for our kids and for our schools and our programs, and I wish you all the best, and I think and I appreciate you even considering having me on. It's kind of humbling, to be honest with you. So.
This is great fun. I enjoy the conversation, and I think honestly, people who are close to the league could enjoy this conversation. I think this is the type of thing that anybody who played high school sports, anybody curious about how sports are working nowadays at the high school level, it's just interesting. And the way the world has changed over the past 5 years, because 5 years ago, it's one of those things that feels like yesterday, but also it feels like forever ago. It's like a mixture. You forget the times that are pre-social media, but you kind of, feel like it flew to this point. So to reminisce on that growth and how it impacted schools and leagues, it was cool for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I look forward to continuing to cover this league and enjoy football that's beyond just, my backyard of working at Farrell, and see all this league, what this league has to offer. So thank you as well. I appreciate it. For Subway Sports Talk, Chris Hardart, president of the New York City Catholic High School Football League, the NYCHSFL. More stuff to come on this topic. Hopefully you enjoyed. For now, stay tuned for more Subway Sports Talk to come in the next week or two. We got plenty of NBA to talk. Hopefully we have some MLB to talk about other than the damn lockout stuff, and NFL free agency and draft around the corner. Chris, great time to be a sports fan. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.